Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Peace in the Middle East has been the goal of every U.S. president in recent memory. President Trump is no different, but he's taking a far different approach than his predecessors. He's asking Christians for their input.
CBN News has learned the president is talking with evangelical leaders about his Middle East peace plan. White House correspondent Ben Kennedy spoke with some of those leaders about their meeting with the commander-in-chief.
Faith leaders told the White House to never forget that Iran remains the real enemy in the Middle East. That being said, the deal won't work unless the Palestinian Authority is open to talks. To solve that dilemma, the Trump administration wanted to hear directly from Christian leaders.
We were stunned by that.
Stunned that the White House wanted input from leaders like Pastor Jack Graham on Middle East peace.
We talked about, of course, the sovereignty of Israel, that's very important for Christians, and particular Bible-believing Christians, that Israel has a right to exist and Jerusalem as its capital.
In the meeting that included Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the president's son-in-law Jared Kushner, Graham and others urged the security of Israel must be a priority.
Making sure that Israel is safe. As long as people keep throwing bombs at Israel, it's going to be difficult to have peace. So everybody understands that. But at the same time, we talked about partnerships with Arab countries and governments that could be partners, and economic development, I think, will be a part of the plan.
Another attendee, Pastor Jensen Franklin, agrees. Do you think this plan could actually stop the violence along the Gaza border?
I believe there's a possibility. There's something that is working, and people like Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt and others are working diligently trying to find some middle ground.
The middle ground could include a two-state solution. The challenge lies with the Palestinian Authority, who has refused to speak with the White House since President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. What needs to be in this plan to get the Palestinian Authority to the table to even talk?
Opportunity. Everyone needs to live with hope. And so many Palestinian people are living without hope.
The White House has stopped short in releasing details about the Middle East peace plan. In September, President Trump said it would be ready in 4 months, but it's clear more time was needed to hash out a deal. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
Well, I hate to be the voice of discouragement in this conversation, but I just don't see a peace deal. As long as Hamas is in control of Gaza, as long as the PLO, which is effectively the organization that started the Palestinian Authority, they have in their charter that wiping Israel off the map is their goal. So unless you want to put Jaffa on the table, or Haifa on the table, or Tel Aviv on the table, you're not going to get them into any kind of peace deal. Then on top of it, you have UNRWA, the UN Relief Works Agency, which has been around for over 70 years now, where they effectively pay Palestinians to continue to be refugees. And our government has supported that for decades and still supports it, even though President Trump has reduced the allocation. That whole pay-to-slay program that the Palestinian Authority was doing, where if you commit murder against Israelis, the government will then pay you, the Palestinian Authority will then pay you. Until we knock out those kinds of economic supports and until Hamas no longer exists in Gaza, I just don't see any hope of peace. They consistently say they want to drive Israel into the sea. So how can you ever have peace with that kind of adversary? In other news, President Trump is getting out of Washington as the battle over the Mueller report heats up. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. President Trump's visit to California today to see new barriers along the southern border comes as he's backing away from earlier threats to close the U.S. border with Mexico. He says he'll give Mexico a year to stop the flow of illegal drugs, or he'll impose tariffs on cars from that country. All this as the fight over releasing the Mueller report reaches fever pitch. Members of special counsel Robert Mueller's team telling the New York Times that Attorney General William Barr's summary, quote, undersold their findings. Barr says he legally cannot release the full report or the summaries from Mueller's team, but he says he'll have a redacted version ready for release by mid-April. That's not good enough for Democrats.
There's an easy answer to this. Release the Mueller report as soon as possible. And let me just say, the Mueller report will be released.
President Trump responding in a tweet, "There is nothing we can ever give to the Democrats that will make them happy." Well, President Trump also says he'll nominate Herman Cain to a seat on the Federal Reserve Board. The former Godfather's Pizza CEO sought the Republican nomination for president in 2012. He's also a Trump ally. Like fellow potential Fed nominee Stephen Moore, Cain is a critic of Fed policies. President Trump has strongly criticized Fed Chairman Jerome Powell for raising interest rates, saying it's put a drag on the economy. Well, an unlikely relationship is helping Virginia move toward racial reconciliation. Descendants of two key players in the history of slavery in America are working together to heal wounds. CBN senior correspondent Eric Phillips reports from Richmond, the former capital of the Confederacy.
If you're not feeling the souls of the departed here, something's wrong with you.
It's a moment of reality and acknowledgement, and a sacred time, actually, to just realize what our ancestors went through so that we actually are still here today.
On this day, a coalition from across Virginia walks a part of the Richmond Slave Trail. One stop, the historic Lumpkins jail site, where hundreds of thousands of slaves were bought and sold. Virginians for Reconciliation started last year to confront racism. One founder, former Governor Bob McDonnell, says moving forward is impossible without acknowledging the wrongs of the past.
Because this story that has to be told about what happened within 300 yards of the state capitol, the governor's mansion, people are being bought and sold, families being ripped apart. We have to understand, what does that still mean today?
Among the group, out-of-town guests with a special history. Lynn Jackson is a descendant of Dred Scott, a slave who notably sued the government for his freedom. In 1857, the case wound up in the Supreme Court, with then Chief Justice Roger Brooke Taney playing a lead role in striking it down. Standing next to Jackson on this day, one of Taney's descendants.
Roger Brooke Taney made a decision that blacks were inferior to whites and had no standing as a citizen, could not be citizens, and therefore he had no standing to sue for his freedom.
The two now work together, spreading the message of education and reconciliation.
The person causing the harm has to recognize they did it. They have to go to the injured party and recognize to them that they hurt them, and they have to express regret. And then the injured party has to forgive you for that. And when we did that, the Scotts embraced us and forgave us.
If they can do it, we should all take encouragement and be able to do it.
Because for Dred Scott and Taney to be working together is something most people would think would never happen.
That's why the two felt it was important to be here on this day together. Former Governor Bob McDonnell says later on this year, ground will be broken right here on this site with money that was appropriated during his administration to tell the story of slave trading here in Virginia and what those men and women had to endure. The timing is important as the country remembers 400 years since the first slaves were brought to America.
It started here in Virginia in that sense, and we would like it to come full circle and possibly end here.
In Richmond, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thanks, Eric, for that report. Well, the History Channel is counting down to Easter with a new docuseries on the life of Jesus. And one of America's most popular pastors is the project's executive producer. Pastor Joel Osteen gives our Ephraim Graham a closer look at the series, Jesus, His Life.
If you believe, you will see the glory of God.
Jesus is coming to Jerusalem to say that the current world is wrong and we need to change it.
It's the greatest story ever told, and Jesus, His Life, tells Christ's story through the eyes of those who knew Him best.
And receiving favor.
Pastor and best-selling author Joel Osteen is one of the voices in the 4-part History Channel series and its executive producer. What was it about this project that made you not only be interviewed, but lend yourself to serve as executive producer?
Well, I think it's another great way to get the message out of the gospel, of the good news. And, you know, some people aren't going to listen to a minister on television, but they will watch a documentary. It tells the story of Jesus' life from a historical perspective. Really a lot that we can all learn.
More than 20 faith leaders joined Pastor Osteen in this series to help get the gospel out.
She was the one chosen by God.
It would have been difficult for Mary to tell Joseph what happened.
Joseph is conflicted. He doesn't immediately believe the story about the Holy Spirit. And then on the other hand, he doesn't want to hurt her.
What new lessons did you learn about the life of Jesus from working on this project?
I think the new lessons is, more about the culture at the time. I grew up as a preacher's kid, and some of that, some of these things I didn't learn, growing up, just the culture and the historical times. And so that's what I really like.
I am with you always, to the very end of the age.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Thanks, Ephraim. Well, you can catch the 2 remaining episodes of Jesus, His Life, Monday nights on the History Channel. CBN's documentary To Life, How Israeli Volunteers Are Changing the World, was screened recently at the United Nations. The film explores 5 Israeli organizations dedicated to helping people around the globe, whether they are friend or foe. The documentary has also been nominated for 2 Daytime Emmy Awards. The winners will be announced on May 5th. And congratulations, Gordon. We're all rooting for the film.
I'm especially rooting for the film, but thanks to Ambassador Danny Danon, who screened it at the UN. He's the Israeli ambassador to the UN. We want to get the message out to as many people as possible. Here's Israel, a tiny nation about the size of New Jersey, but they're providing humanitarian relief to over 140 countries around the world. And just imagine that. Here they are. If there was any country in the world that could say, well, we've got enough problems here at home. We've got to deal with terrorism on a regular basis. But no, they say, no, we want to help people. And that includes helping Palestinians. That includes helping Iraqis, people who are being persecuted by ISIS. They're helping the world. So if you want to see it, it can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. We'd be glad to send it to you. So call us, 1-800-700-7000, and say, yes, I would like to get a copy of To Life, and we'll ship you out the DVD. You can also order it on CBN.com.